Welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Van. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, a life coach, meditation teacher, and author, I've spent my life studying and learning from the stories that make us human. It's my passion and goal to help you shift your mindset and create a lifelong revolution. It's time to get real, and I mean really real, with a dose of honesty and a whole lot of self-reflection. We are in a space of a lot of change and turmoil and chaos, and we have to really check in from time to time to find out where we really sit. Where are you in your life right now? In today's one-on-one deep dive, we're going to face reality, even when it's not easy. And I'm going to give you a few steps to consider when it comes to checking in, getting to know who you are right now, not you in the future, not you in the past, but the present moment you, so that you can evaluate where you want to head next. So let's not waste another moment. The Get Your Life Together Girl podcast starts right now. It's sort of this joke among some of the people that come and see me every week. I ask them, do you want my kid gloves on, so I'm a little bit softer, a little easier, or do you want the punching gloves on, ready to take a hit? And it's not a mean way. It's more of a, do you want the real truth? Do you want to see things from where you are? Or do you want me to sort of placate and we'll be a little bit more easy right now? So if you are in a space where you need the kid gloves today, this may not be the conversation for you. It may not be, because it's time to really evaluate where we are, where we want to go, and what we need to do right now. What would happen if you had to look at where you are right this moment with some heavy self-reflection, accepted your truth, decided who you were, evaluated how you wanted to get there, and then freely moved forward? What would happen? Would you be in the same place? Would you change things in a different way? What would you do? What would give you a sense of control, a sense of safety? What would let you come up for air from your emotions? What would make you feel like things were going well in your life? Not knowing the answers can be a problem. So we're talking about what would happen if you had to start over from zero. What steps would you take? And the reason why we're talking about that is because if we have to get really honest with where we are, that takes self-reflection. It takes acceptance and knowledge of our lives. It allows us to get clear. We evaluate habits and we give ourselves some feedback, right? Because we need that from time to time. We have to check in. Where are we? How do we feel? What's going on? And facing reality sometimes isn't easy, because we're going to dig up something that we want to change, which is why I'm saying, if you had to start over, what would you do? I'm going to give you 17 steps, basically, of what I would do if I had to start over, if I had to lean in to my thought processes of where I am right now and decide what's worthy of keeping and what is worthy of letting go. That is where the kid gloves come off. So here we go. If I had to rebuild my life from scratch, the first thing I would do was mourn what hasn't been and what has. The deal is this. You know this. I know this. We can't change the past. But we can look at the things that it has taught us. We can learn from the mistakes that have happened. And if we're not happy with the past, we have to be honest with ourselves. Was it all bad? Was it something that actually brought us to where we are now, and we need to accelerate from that moment or those moments that really kind of did us in? Can I allow myself to mourn what I felt was lost? Because allowing yourself to grieve allows you to know what was important. I'm going to say that again. To allow myself to grieve is to know what was important. There's no reason to get locked up in these moments. They happened, they occurred for you, there's lessons in them. They gave you all of this information so that you could change and that you could grow. You might feel regret or loss or sadness or anger, frustration, excitement, nervousness, the entire range of 22 emotions. But if everything is already past, why are we fighting those moments? Active in the situation. If I had to start my life over from scratch, I would sit down and accept what has been, and I would mourn what I didn't get from those situations. And what I didn't get from those situations, I would put on a piece of paper and say, that is something important that I need. I'm holding on to my past because those things were not met. Imagine what would happen if you had that kind of information. If you knew what needs had not been met from your past experiences and you had the ability to meet them now, what would change? The next thing I would do was go back to the basics. Take care of some of the basics. Facing change, getting to the core of where you are, hits on the most soul level of yourself. It makes us feel unsure and unsettled because that's what happens when we start questioning ourselves. And that basic understanding brings us to our core needs, feeling safe, feeling protected. And I would ask myself, in the span of my lifetime, what has made me feel the safest? What needs, remember we have some information about our needs, need to be met in order to feel less chaotic, to feel more secure, to make everything feel less up in the air. If I knew that, I could then take those needs and those things that make me feel secure and have even greater depth of information. It would take me saying, you know what, it feels safest when I understand where I am emotionally. And so I need to look at times when I needed to process my emotions, but maybe I bypassed that. If it was money that was an issue and I couldn't find work, even if it was temporary, I could say, I know that I need to be proactive all the time and not complacent. That gives me the power of presence. When we know what the needs are and what makes us feel safe, we have a lot of information about taking small, immediate actions day to day to help us live in a more healthy and balanced way. The next thing that I would do, step 3, would be to identify what has held me back. So we know that there have been needs that weren't met. That's going to hold you back. We know that there would be these things that make us feel safest. So those are actually our accelerators. And now we want to know, out of the scope of everything, if I was starting over, what thing would I ditch? What habit, what negative thought, belief, thing would I kick out? It could be a wrong relationship, a wrong situation, perhaps where you live. Doesn't matter what it is. We all outgrow things. And when we stay, it does us no favors. So if we were being honest and we had to access exactly where we were today, both internally and externally, what would go? What would change? One of the most powerful questions that I have ever been asked, and then I have asked others, is where do you hide in your life? Where do you hide? What coping mechanisms do you have that you think are making you feel safe, but you hide in those things? Some people, it's alcohol, drugs, unhealthy relationships. Those things all need to go, right? In order to start over, to be in the healthiest, most grounded, centered place in your life. For others, it's hiding in the good things, and yet it's still hiding. You can't carry a new life forward or a more grounded life forward if you're still holding on to the things that you have outgrown? So what would the things that are holding you back be? Think about what we're doing here. If I had to start over, what would I need and want? So I have mourned what hasn't been. I've taken my needs forward. I've gone back to the basic and said, I know that this makes me safe. And then I also know that this thing that I do holds me back from living my most grounded life. If I was going to then step forward with those big pieces of knowledge in my hand, I would say, what ruts exist? What sidelines of my life have I been standing on? Right? So I know that I have big challenges, but where are these things? What ways do I feel stuck or trapped in these repeat patterns, really, that aren't allowing me to take the left turn instead of the right? Again and again, we tend to make the same decisions and we end up stuck. I'm doing air quotes. We end up frozen in so many ways. And those ruts and sidelines drag us down and continue to pull us backward. So where do you need to pull yourself from? What ruts exist? A lot of people will talk about their day-to-day and how there's no joy in it, how there's nothing in it that makes them feel like they want to just jump out of bed and attack life. And I'll say, okay, let's walk through it. What does the day-to-day look like? Well, I get up, I get ready for work, I make my lunch, I drive the exact same roads, I enter my office at almost the exact same time. I have the same day-to-day thing. The feeling all feels the same. And then I drive home and I sit on the couch. Maybe I take my kids to practice. I do whatever is necessary. And then I can't wait to go to bed. And I'll say, is that living? Would you consider that being an active part of your life? Or is that just surviving the day? It may sound like a mighty task to switch something up, but the minute you stop daydreaming, the minute that you stop putting active excitement into your life, finding the glimmers, finding the joy, creating life on your terms, is the day that the satisfaction is sucked right out of your experience. So instead of getting to that place, what can you do to get off of the sidelines of your life? Maybe you join a gym and you stop there before heading home from work so that you're not sitting, so that you're interacting with people, you're creating personal safety and perhaps connection with other people. What does that look like for you? Maybe you join a cooking class or whatever it might be. What can you change that allows you to take the reins of your life and start living again? If I had to start over, I would take some of the mundane out and I would consider, do I want a small life? I don't, not me personally. Some people are okay with that and that's fine. But do you want a big life? I know I do. I want excitement and travel and joy, and I want to look across these places and know that I have lived an experience. Is that you? Where are you? What can you do to pull yourself out of the rut? And then if I was starting over, if I was really evaluating where I was, I would forget about my age. Age is really just a number, and many of us get hung up on, I'm too old. But I can't do that at 45, 50 years old. I can't do that in my 30s. I can't do that with a small child at home. I can't do that when my kids are in college. I can't do that. It's bullshit. It is. Sorry to throw it out at you like that. Your age genuinely makes no difference. You can feel like you have to have more at 25 or at 55. It's the same process. It doesn't matter. Where can you make changes and forget about your age? It's the same way as mourning the loss of the things you haven't done yet. I know personally, I don't want to get to my deathbed and hopefully another 50 years or more, I'm trying to go for 55 or plus, right? I don't want to get there and say, I wish I had. That is the number one thing that hospice nurses say, is that people get to the end of their lives and they have deep regret for the things that they did not do. I, for one, refuse to be there. Instead of having apprehension of what someone else may think, I want you to remember that the 60-year-old who got their master's is not any less relevant than the 30-year-old who did it. It's an ultimate illusion to say, because I am a number, a chronological number, doesn't mean that these opportunities are available to me. If you think you can, it is. So if I were starting over, if I was evaluating exactly where I am, I would throw age off to the table and say, F it, let's do this damn thing, right? That is what I would do. The next thing, 6 on the list, is I would share the load. I would look for support. I know personally, I am someone who had to really learn to ask for help. It wasn't allowed for me. That was a part of carry it on your own, do your own things, create perfection, do all. And I had a hard time for a very long time saying, hey, this is what I needed. And for a long time, when I said what I needed, it was refused. When people are used to you being the person who does all the things, they have a hard time. They have a really hard time with trying to offer you support, because they don't know what that looks like. They have to learn it too. So if I was starting over, I was evaluating where I am, I would say, I don't want to be alone. I don't want to feel abandoned, because that's a daunting task. I don't want to break down these relationships that I have. Instead, I would surround myself with like-minded people. I would look for the positive influence in my life. I would look for the safest person. Who are your safe people? It's important to know that. And if you don't know who your safe people are, let me give you some understanding. The safest people in your life will challenge the hell out of you. They will take your thoughts. They will process them. They will ask questions in support, not judgment. They will apologize without belittling, and they will not ask you to own their feelings. They have zero desire to leave you alone or to abandon you. They know how to show you empathy. They know what empathy means. They don't do it because they have to. They do it because they want to. There is a huge difference. Your safest people ask for permission to share with you, and they support you based on what you need, not based on how they need to show up, right? Because we love in the love language in which we want to be provided. And those people who are safest to us know what you need in your love language, and that's how they show up. They push you to expand, not because you're broken, because they know you are worthy of greatness. They want to share your load. They also know that healing is not easy, and they want to hold your hand in the darkness and the light. And they do everything they can to put you in their community. And that's what I would do. I would share the load. I would ask for help. I'd get a therapist if I needed it. I would get a life coach, a person who is your rah-rah cheerleader, but is also going to put on those gloves and shoot straight. Because we can all find somebody who's a yes man. But who is that person that challenges you? Who makes you see yourself differently? Number 7, I would refuse to be a victim. Life is about taking responsibility. It just is. And the biggest way that we hold ourselves back is looking at our circumstances, our events, our trauma, all the things, and saying, well, that's the reason why I haven't X, Y, and Z. If why I am holding myself back is because I'm shifting responsibility elsewhere, I'm not living my true story. So I would evaluate those things that held me back in the past, those needs that weren't being met. What was my role and responsibility in them? Because if I identify that, that also means that I have a new path, right? It's called being proactive. It's giving myself a mold, a path, an ability to shape what hasn't worked into a new place. It's not wallowing in self-pity. It's choosing to be the hero in my own story, not the survivor, not the victim, but instead my own damn hero. Can you do it? Hell yes, you can. Will you? Number 8, I'd start with some new values. You know, our values and our beliefs are framed and shaped from what we grew up with. And oftentimes people come in, they're in their 30s, their 40s, not so much in their 20s because we really aren't in that space of identifying our beliefs and values yet, mostly. Some people are, but mostly we're not. But 30s and 40s, and we're like, I have no idea what I believe in. I don't know who I am. You know, I believed this, but when I do it, it doesn't make me feel good. And I would say to you, do those beliefs and values work for you? If you had to start over and you totally lost all of it, and you were looking at a page filled with core values or the things that you had been taught as a child, what would you pick from that foundation? If it's nothing, wouldn't it be best to set those principles on fire and walk away? If it's this and a little bit of that, and I'll take this, then extract it. I know what my needs were. Where do my values fit in that place? So I would identify that. I would say, what matters to me most? What kind of person do I want to be? How do I want to show up? What kind of relationship do I want? How do I want other people to treat me? How do I want to treat other people? If you know what's important to you, you have a better result in your life. And number 9, I would discover what I want. If you've listened to this podcast or you've heard me talk live, or perhaps you've been in session with me and it's been a while, or you've been thinking about it, I will always hand over 4 questions. You probably know them by heart by now if you have been with me for a while. 1, what do I want? 2, what do I need? 3, how do I want to feel? 4, how am I going to get there? All of those are answered in this process. Get really practical. What do I want? If you take some introspection, right, and tease out some answers, you can say, if I were to die this year, what would I do? If there was nothing that had this major sense of urgency and that everything needed to be handled right this moment, what would I do first? What would be important? If I had to be called to do something and I had to spend all my time doing it, would I be satisfied in that thing? And if so, could that be what I really want? What will I no longer accept? What makes me happy? What habits enable me to have that life that I'm desiring? What can I add to this world? What do I want? I'd find that out. It's also hidden in those needs, right? It's hidden in those spaces that told you, hey, if you ever see that again, you're going to want to do X, Y, and Z. It's there. You already have some of the answers you're seeking. Number 10, I would create some obtainable and practical goals. Soul searching is great, right? Dreaming, fantastic. Daydreaming, awesome. But if you don't have a plan, if you don't put things into practical steps, you don't take action, it doesn't actually matter, right? You want to create intentions and goals that are specified, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're relevant to what you want right now, and they have an end cap time. You're aiming to do something, so what would it be? Bring yourself closer to this space of who you are to fulfillment by saying, this is what I feel is most important in my life. And if I had to start over, or if I was evaluating, I sure as hell would leave some things that I'm doing off the table because they're not working. I know you're the same. If you had to start over, what would you keep? What would be most important? What would you learn? What would you do? Number 11, I would learn how to cope with that fluttering in my chest, that fear, that anxiety, that stress. In times when life feels overwhelming, we are programmed to fear. We're programmed to feel the anxiety. We crave the comforting safety of what's familiar, and we tend to go back there. But if I was reevaluating, if I was starting over from scratch, I would say I would learn how to deal with the things that feel most uncertain. I would listen to my stress factors. I would listen to my anxiety, and I would do everything necessary to keep myself out of that constant strain and drain of fight or flight. When your head needs to be cleared and you are in some of the worst places in your life, it's hard to get there. It takes almost a magic wand to get out of it. And so I would learn to better cope. I would learn to meditate, breath work. I would work out every day if it meant that I could feel some calm. I would do yoga. I would run. I would journal. I would take long walks in the night with my dogs. I would call the friend who I haven't talked to in a while. Whatever it is, I would learn to deal with the anxiety. I would meet my own needs. And the 12th thing I would do is I would push myself out of my comfort zone. We all know that the comfort zone is something that keeps us safe. We all know that growth happens most outside of it. We also want to know that growing and evolving makes us feel unsafe most of the time. So we want to test the limits a little bit. What would happen if I allowed myself to get uncomfortable? Can I experience what I want inside comfort? If I found myself in a foreign space, how would I react? The answers to those questions help you define the next steps. The next thing that I would do is I would give my mindset a huge makeover. Right? Mindset is everything. It's what I talk about all the time. It determines how you perceive the world around you. It dictates your success. It shows you where your challenges and your obstacles are going to be. It influences how you see yourself and everyone around you. It shapes your emotions and your behaviors and your mood and your attitude. It is the foundation of everything in your life, and yet it's so overlooked. We focus on the outside factors, money, relationship, the career, the things, instead of looking at what am I believing about me? If we neglect our mindset, we neglect everything. We spend far too much time trying to control everything that's uncontrollable. We spend so much energy and worried about the future, living in the present, worried about the past. We're too rooted in the negative. 90% of what happens to you is positive. 10% is negative. You're focused on the 10%. Your mindset is not good. Quit obsessing about the problems. Get real about where you are and decide, is my mindset causing 90% of what I'm worrying about? If all you're doing is paying attention to the fact that you may fail, what do you think is going to happen? You have a mindset of failure. So it's plaguing you. It's creating your reality. So if I had to start over again, I'd get really clear about what is going on in my head. I would listen to my inner critic. I would decide if that was true or not. And I would decide if I needed to clean that up. And if I did, I would say, you know what, these beliefs are not mine. And so I need to decide what I want to focus on. I wouldn't try to go from a negative to a positive. Instead, I would go to a neutral and say, right now is good enough. What I'm doing right now is good enough. It's not my stopping point. It's my middle ground. I'm trying to get to positive. I've been a negative for so long, and now I'm trying to get to positive, but I have to take the baby steps. I have to climb the ladder. I would really determine where my mindset was. The 14th step is I would make friends with failure because I'm going to fall down that ladder. Just like learning and experiencing life had a learning curve the first time, when I'm resetting, I have to learn again. right? If I don't stop pursuing my goals, it means I'm going to learn in my failures. I'm going to make mistakes. If I don't embrace them, what is there? If I avoid everything, then I'm just bypassing how I'm feeling. Failure doesn't have to be something that you fear. It's actually an opportunity. If I ask myself, what did I learn from this? How can I use that knowledge in the future? It's just like, hey, if I grieved what has happened and I pull my needs out of this moment, it gives me some information. Failure is information. It's never good to look at something and just say, well, that's what it was. It is what it is, a saying that I absolutely hate because it never is what it is. And you just say, okay, I'm going to fall flat on my face, but the most successful people that I know have failed so often, they just keep getting back up. So if I had to start today all over, if I had to reevaluate, I would say, hey, failure, I want to give you a hug. I'm going to embrace you no matter how hard it is because I need you. I need you as my teacher. I'm willing to sit with you if you will sit with me and show me what I need next. That's what I would do. I would take that 14th step and say, I am not afraid to fail. The 15th thing that I would do is I would support myself in challenging times. I know that I have been through some things, and every time I make it through, resiliency is built. It's there for me. And so if I know that the past has taught me how to be and survive in those moments, it should also teach me that I have that strength already pre-built in me and I can support myself when it gets hardest. No matter what, you have to know I can do this. If I had to start all over again, I would develop that attitude so fast. If I was reevaluating where I am right now, and that wasn't a part of my support system, my self-trust, my self-safety, I would add it. I would know that I have the ability to get through anything. I have evidence, and I would go and look for it if I needed to. If I needed the evidence to prove to myself that I can do it, I would find it. The 16th thing that I would do is I would be so curious. Right? I would try to learn everything I possibly could. I would look to my interest. I would let go of the perfectionism. And I would say, what does the world have to offer me? I said earlier, I want a big life. What does that look like? If I stick to my ways right now, am I giving myself permission to seek, to be curious? If I had to start over, I would try multiple approaches until something felt best to me. I would try the new hobby, the class, the books. I would explore. I would do whatever it took. I would be weird, right? I would say, hey, I know I've had preconceived notions about doing this and not letting people know about that thing, but I don't give a damn anymore. I did not show up here to live their lives under their expectations. I came here to be me. I am going to be curious about what that means. You have to know that if you stick to the same approach for the rest of your life, you're going to get the same results. And maybe that works for you. But my guess is if you're here, it's not. So where do you need to explore? And the 17th thing that I would do is I would not wait to give myself permission and to make a choice. This is your life. How do you want it to look? Sometimes we're afraid to act because we have messed up. Sometimes we're afraid to act because of disapproval. Sometimes we worry about not having the strength to handle what comes next. And we wait and we sit and we say, I feel stuck. I'm not sure. Maybe someday. Why not today? Ask questions, seek advice, seek support, do whatever, but give yourself permission. Even the small permission. Say yes, say no. Do whatever permission looks like for you, but stop waiting. If you wait too long, sometimes what you were going to do passes. If it's there for you, it will come back. However, do you have to wait another 20 years? Do you want to? I would start. I would start today, even scared, and I would do these things. If I had to reinvent myself right this moment, it would look like leaning in. It would look like failure. It would look like allowing myself to be the human that I've said I've wanted to be. There's no BS in it. There's no big drama in it. Instead, it's who am I? What do I want? What do I need? How do I want to feel? And how am I going to get there? How am I going to live as that person? These feel like really fundamental things, right? Very easy things. But the truth is, most people do not attack their lives like this. They sit, they wait, they don't recognize that there is a true self in there trying to have an experience. Have your experiences. Jumpstart it right now. If there's one thing that you could do, what would it be? Don't worry about failure. Just do. That's what I'm leaving you with today. That's what I'm challenging you to think about, to focus in on. If I could do just one thing and take control and live in this commitment to myself, what would that be? Start living from that. Because when you do, it is the essential step into getting your life together. Thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. If you've enjoyed these tips for bettering your life and are seeking daily inspiration, follow me on social media at Get Your Life Together Girl on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Clapper, TikTok, Insight Timer, and so many more places. You can also visit my website at getyourlifetogethergirl.com, where you'll find my blog, upcoming events that you can tune in live to that are free. You can also find a merch store and so much more. So go there. So many different tools that are both free and for purchase. I can't thank you enough for being such a valuable part of this community. I encourage you to review this show. Leave a comment if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, as it does help others. I hope you have a wonderful day. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.